Welcome back to VMworld 2022. I'm Tony Foster. Thank you for joining us for this VMT and vBrownBag session. This is educating the next generation of IT professionals using VMware technology. I'm your host for this conversation. I'm Tony Foster, and let's just get into it. So today's agenda: why is my cape, and I'll put on the cape at the end of the event so you can all see the cape. Why is that cape purple? We'll talk about why it's purple here in just a second. We'll talk about how I became Professor Wonder Nerd. So for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I am Wonder_Nerd on Twitter. For those who aren't following me yet, give me a follow. Then we're going to talk about virtualization in the classroom and how we can leverage a lot of the awesome tools that VMware has made available to educational institutions for teaching virtualization. So this is an awesome opportunity for educators out there. Out of curiosity, show of hands, who all works in education? I've got about 4 or 5 hands. Cool. Well, we'll talk about some tools you can leverage there. We'll talk about some opportunities where those of you who aren't in education can get into education and potentially find your next great hire. We'll talk about the bits and pieces that I use in my classroom and how we leverage those, how we take students literally from knowing nothing about virtualization to deploying virtual machines. Absolutely fun times there. We'll talk about that impact on the students and what they're seeing as they go through the class. We'll then talk about the benefits beyond the classroom, how they're taking this and going out into their new careers and everything with this experience. And lastly, we'll talk about how you can get involved in some of those options. So with that, let's talk about why the Wonder Nerd's cape is purple. You may know, you may not know, I work full-time at Dell Technologies. I'm a technical marketing engineer. So that is my full-time gig. I'm there writing technical white papers and doing all sorts of cool stuff in the lab. And in 2020, I got a phone call and went and talked to my boss. Mr. Boss, can I go teach this class at K-State? And my boss is like, absolutely, yes, you can. This is a great way to connect with potential new career or new people in the marketplace. This is a great way to show Dell giving back. This is a great thing for you and for Dell. Please go do this. It only took a couple hours a week, about 3 or 4. It was remote in 2020, so I was managing the lab and everything completely remote, and it was actually pretty cool. Now I'm in person and managing my lab in person, which really is still remote for me. And of course, being part of Dell, how cool is it to say, I've got a professor on my team? So that was one other factor that my boss really liked when talking about, hey, can I go be a professor? So that puts me as an adjunct professor at Kansas State University, or K-State. And all of this stems from me being a former student at K-State. So my former advisor, who is now department head, calls me up and goes, Tony, can you please come teach? And that's how we took it from there. And from K-State, I have a master's certificate in business administration and 2 bachelor's degrees, one in technology management and one in computer systems. Because I only have a master's certificate, I am audited and supervised by a professor holding a doctorate's degree. So all of my classes are audited and supervised and everything. So I am supervised, and they do review all my course material and the grades and everything with me as I go through. That's pretty standard for anyone looking to get into teaching a single class, that you either have a master's degree or are supervised. So just a heads up on that. So becoming Professor Wonder Nerd. As I said, got a call from the department head going, hey, can you come teach this? And it was actually fairly interesting. The professor who I was replacing, who was scheduled to teach the class, took a job at a government agency and had to start immediately. So they're like, we've got to fill this class. We've got to get somebody to take this. And so I started the class with about 3 weeks of notice. So that's 3 weeks to put together a set of lesson plans, a syllabus, and other course materials, and get a lab ready for students to be working in. This class also hadn't been updated in a while. So a lot of this stuff relates back to Windows 2000 and Windows 2003. That was much of the stuff they were talking about. How do you do Active Directory trust and things of that nature? And it's like, we need to update this. We need to update this and put a modern approach on IT. So that's where we decided to virtualize the classroom. We went in, looked at the old approach. It was lacking. We needed to introduce at least virtualization to these students. Because K-State Salina students, you're getting a degree in computer systems, typically. And computer systems is programming and development work, but it also goes deeper into what technology you're using. So we're like, we gotta change this. We gotta actually relate this back. That way the students who are programming also were aware of the underlying technology, the foundational technology that they were using, so that they can relate to, okay, I'm programming, or I'm going to request a system, or I'm going to request Docker containers. I want to be able to know what I am requesting. I want to know how my program that I am writing relates back into the hardware and infrastructure I'm using. We want them to know what that switching impact is. So if you go in and change a switch setting, what's that going to do to your program? How are ACLs going to affect your program? Access control list for anyone who hasn't heard the term ACLs before. We want to make sure that they have that connection to the underlying infrastructure going all the way up into their program. Not just, I know how to write C. I know how to write C, and I know how to configure the hardware and stuff I need for that. So that was the new path we decided to take with this class. That way we could enable those modern IT practices for our students. That way, not just racking and stacking. In fact, they didn't do anything physical in the lab. It was all remote. But they had to know this is a server all the way up to here's how I deploy a virtual machine and here's how I administer that virtual machine. What are those specs? And so that was important for the students. Come on, there we go. So we decided on an updated approach. Luckily, we had a company in Salina, where I teach at K-State, that donated a bunch of old servers. They were moving completely to the cloud, and they had a bunch of old R720 and R730 Dell servers. Said, hey, you guys want these? Can you do anything with them? You can build ESXi on R720s and R730s. We're like, yes, please. So we got servers. We had a bunch of networking equipment, and we've been growing that out. Until recently, they did not have a 10 gig network in that lab. So this semester, they will have 10 gigs of networking in the lab. So they're slowly moving towards a more modern platform. It's still all relevant to what they are learning and how to administer it. You don't need a 25 gig network to know how to configure port groups and firewall restrictions and things of that nature. You can do that on old hardware just fine. We had storage, we had all sorts of other stuff, and we started using virtualization. The VMware Academic program provides licenses for a very, very minimal cost to the university if you are teaching a virtualization program at your college. If you are teaching students how to do virtualization, you can get VMware licenses, and we'll walk through what those licenses are here on the next slide, for your college classroom, for whatever you're trying to build. So this includes Docker containers. This includes all sorts of awesome things that you can start building with this at a very reduced cost to the university. So it is a great opportunity to take advantage of. And that allows us to get into those cloud models and containers. Obviously, we don't do a whole lot going into the cloud because it's just somebody else's computer. But we talk about the cloud and cloud models and how you can move stuff into and out of. Don't have them run stuff in there because I don't want anyone to wind up with a insane bill because a student left a server on overnight. I don't think anybody wants that. And then we started taking them through actually building applications. So their overall goal was to build a web server running WordPress and actually be able to administer that and configure that like a corporate WordPress environment. So they had a separate MySQL server where they had to do all of the security settings and everything and configure that to connect to connect to their primary WordPress host, and had to do all the configuration on that. And if we would have time, we would have had them do a multi-host environment or a multi-virtual machine environment where they had multiple WordPress servers federated together. But we typically run out of time just because a lot of the students that we work with haven't done a whole lot past Word. Maybe they've done some compiling and stuff in Visual Studio, but they haven't necessarily made it all the way past. So this is an introductory class that I typically teach. And so we're getting them there slowly, and we'll talk about one of those stories here in a bit. And then we make them figure out user experience. What's that user experience supposed to look like? How do you want your users to experience the website that you built? And how does that factor into your performance and programming and stuff that you've done? So really, really cool approach to take there. So I said we talk about the VMware Academic program a little bit more. VMware Academic program is available. To qualify to use it, you must be a 2, 3, or 4-year academic institution or nonprofit technical school offering degrees. And there's a little bit more to that, but that is the primary statement on the academic website to qualify for this. So any of those would qualify for it. The lab that you're putting this in must be primarily used for instructional or research purposes. So if you're researching how to program against vSphere, you can do it that way. If you're teaching people how to use vSphere, you can do it that way. Faculty and staff may install the software on their personal computers. And this is a cool part because if you look over here at the included products, you'll see that VMware Fusion is included as well as Workstation is included. So you can actually have students, and the lab environment that we have where they actually sit at desk has VMware Player on it so that students can actually fire up virtual machines and work with all of the different technology isolated on their computers. At the end of the class, I actually tell them, if you want to take home the virtual machines that you created, we will walk through that, bring in a removable hard disk, and we'll offload these and you can take them home and run them on your own system. So we actually walk through that and how to leverage those tools, which again helps them prepare for IT and being able to do this stuff remotely or on their own systems and then take it into work. You also have VMware vSAN. So you can take advantage of VMware vSAN as you talk about modern infrastructure and how that plays into a modern IT environment. And of course, the whole vRealize suite and Tanzu. So Tanzu Basic is included in there, which unlocks the power for containers. So definitely something to consider. And if you'd like to find out more, the link is right there. The college basically renews its subscription to the academic program every 365 days. And if I remember correctly, it's about $200 for the university for the covered campus that you're using it on. So absolutely a phenomenal program, something you definitely want to take advantage of. So let's talk a little bit about the educational results that come from teaching virtualization in the classroom. Teaching virtualization in the classroom, it's actually pretty cool. How many people, when you've taken classes before, got to do it all hybrid? And if you've gone to college, especially, got to do classes either hybrid or online only. So I have about 4 people raising hands here. I did it with an entire class in 2020. I did hybrid mode last year in 2021 for the fall semester of 2021. And for this year, it will be mostly in person. All of the lectures and everything will be recorded. All of the students will still have VPN access into the lab to work on the equipment, but there will be the complete ability to function remotely. Last semester, I also taught an 8-week accelerated online course of this. So this provides, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, context for later on as they go through the courses. So I mentioned that a lot of them do code development and stuff. It ties back into that infrastructure. Some of them choose to go on to become IT managers or IT admins. And this gives them great contextual awareness for what's happening in their environment and the structures and everything, so that they're aware of what's going on before they even get into the weeds of managing IT infrastructure. As I tell my students, if you're going to mess something up, please mess it up in the lab that we have on campus before you go out into the real world. If you mess it up in the lab on campus, it'll take me about 2 hours to rebuild anything you destroy. I don't care. I've got spare servers, I've got spare switches. You can physically short something out. I'm not worried. If you do that in a public environment or in a job, that's going to be a resume generating event, an RGE. You're going to need to go find another job and then you'll have to explain it. In college, in courses like this, you can mess it up and it'll be all right. And I've had people freak out over that statement, and by the time the course ends, they're like, now I understand what you mean by mess it up here. And of course, they take this out beyond college. Couple of interesting stories. I have 2 students who have taken my class who work in campus IT. So they are still students on the K-State Salina campus, and they applied for student roles in campus IT. And they walked in, and on the first day, each of them had been told, and they're one's a senior now, and one is a sophomore. So they're 2 years apart. But they were told their first day in, hey, go in on this virtual machine and do this. Here are your credentials. Just go at it. And the IT staff had been expecting them not to know anything about virtualization. 15 minutes later, they come back and go, I'm done. I've done it. What's next? And the IT staff at K-State have been truly impressed by the knowledge that they're able to pull from this class to administer virtual machines at the university IT level. So It's absolutely a phenomenal program for helping students gain that awareness before they get into a real life IT situation. The other one, and I mentioned I did a rapid 8-week distance learning course. I had a student, and I mentioned that they weren't huge fans of, or not huge fans, that some of the students hadn't even done anything beyond Word. They're like, I know Word, I know Excel, I don't know anything else. I am freaking out because I've never touched a Linux machine. I've never heard of virtualization. I've heard of the cloud, but only in advertisements. I don't think I can do this. And I had one student who was freaking out. I actually had to do an hour-long Zoom session with her and explain, no, you're good. It's okay. Just follow the instructions and you're going to understand this. So at the 7-week mark of the course, I sat down with her again and I'm like, how are we doing? Oh, this is great. You feeling good about mounting ISO images to virtual machines? Oh, piece of cake, piece of cake. You okay with networking? Yeah, I love networking. I can do any of this. This is fine. Awesome. So how you feel about building those virtual machines? Oh, they're going great. And how about installing MySQL and stuff? Oh, that's easy. Great. Isn't this a change from where you were at the beginning of the class? Isn't this amazing to move from, I don't trust myself with any of this, I'm afraid I'm going to break it horribly, to, I can do this. This isn't that scary. This is the class where they're like, oh, what class follows this? I want to learn more. I want to find out more about how I do IT administration. And so they get super pumped for the classes that are coming up. I have several students who are like, can I please list you as a reference for when I go into these job interviews? So it is an absolutely awesome thing to get into. Let's talk about the industry impact on this. This creates a more competent workforce. You've been hearing me say that over and over again in this session. We have people coming out of the university system, coming out of technical colleges that are able to administer and manage and understand the stuff we're talking about here at VMworld. It is very uplifting, in my opinion, to know that our students, the people coming after us, are going to be able to understand this without us having to sit there and beat it over the head when they come and join the workforce. It also expands the talent pool. How many people here have had to go looking for additional help in their environments, either IT administration or development? Or about half the room have had to go and look for it. Would you rather hire somebody who has experience with this stuff, or would you rather get somebody who hasn't worked with the technology and infrastructure in your environment? We're expanding that talent pool. So let's talk about ways to get involved in this. The ways to get involved in this, for starters, reach out. If you attended college in the past and you still live in the same area as the college you went to, reach out to some of your former professors, see if they're interested in having you come visit the classroom. Sometimes that's all it takes. Go in and do a classroom visit and talk to them about what you're doing. The professors may go, hey, it'd be great if you can come in and actually teach a whole class. There are also opportunities. I know a lot of colleges offer non-degree credit classes where they open up the labs on an evening and a community member comes in and teaches a class on virtualization. So you've got that opportunity. You can volunteer for all of those programs. a great way to do it. We talk about VMUG. This has taken it even a step beyond VMUG volunteering out further into the community. And lastly, you can become a mentor. You have an opportunity to reach out to these youth and mentor them and help them grow into the career. And that actually gets us to one of the other great things that come out of this. This gives you the opportunity to find talent for your organization before anybody else gets a view of them. I have several students I am watching in the program who I am hoping to be able to pull into Dell before anybody gets a chance to hire them. I'm hoping that Dell will be able to hire them in the future when they graduate. So that is how cool this can actually be for organizations. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up and turn it back to the vBrownBag crew. Thank you everyone for joining me. If you'd like to ask me questions, we can take it offline, or you can reach out to me on Twitter or at wondernerd.net.